Hey there, welcome back to CMTEQ quiz review, where we put your electrical knowledge to the test. These quizzes are basically designed to sharpen your core concept and boost your confidence in electrical engineering. Obviously, they are not just for electrical engineers, they are for enthusiasts and people who are just curious about tech. But we don't just reveal the correct answer. I'll basically break down why the answer is correct and also clear up some of the confusions on the wrong answers. This week I've got an interesting lineup of quizzes with the first one already on your screen here, so I promise you do not want to miss the coming 4 sets of quizzes. Now without any further ado, let's dive in. And by the way, if you find this useful, interesting, please make sure you give it a thumbs up and also share it to your social media network. That will be highly appreciated. Great. Now the first question is related to the usage of this device here in an IoT application. So this is the ESP8266, which is an expressive device. Now the question reads, what is the primary role of the ESP8266 in an IoT project like this kind of a setup here? And the provided options are: number 1, act as an MQTT broker. Number 2, subscribe to an MQTT topic and control the LED or buzzer or whatever you've got on your iOS. Okay. And number 3, publish messages to an MQTT topic. And 4, replace the Wi-Fi router. Now, all these options, they sound very tempting, right? Now, before you can reveal your answer or you can vote, just hold it. We're going to reveal how the community voted for this particular quiz. Interesting. As you can see here, the result is almost equally divided between option 2 and option 4. Okay, I had a very similar feeling here because most of these options, they are very tempting to actually what the ESP8266 can do. But in this question here, what is the correct answer? Now let's reveal what is the correct answer to see whether the 37% here for option 2, they were actually correct. Let's go. Indeed, option 2 is the correct answer. The ESP8266 primary role is to subscribe to an MQTT topic and control your IoT, your iOS on your controller, basically in this kind of setup. Now, why is this the correct answer and others are wrong? Now, to simply put, in a setup like this, typically your ESP here is going to act like a client on this network. Okay, so which means he's going to subscribe to an MQTT topic and he's going to listen to the message that will be sent by the broker. Okay, so which means he's not going to be acting as a broker because he must listen to the message sent by the broker, and once he gets the message that will say, okay, turn on an LED or activate the buzzer, he then going to take action and execute the task. So which makes option 2 the correct answer to this particular question. Now option 1 is not correct because this is usually separated and run on a server. Option 3, yes, the ESP82 can also publish messages onto a topic, basically, or publish a topic, and another ESP can also subscribe to that topic, right? But the whole thing is being managed by the broker. But as far as the question is concerned, the primary role here will be to subscribe to a topic and publish, although it can also publish messages to a topic, which make this option to actually be almost correct. Okay, now here, replace the Wi-Fi router. No, it cannot replace the Wi-Fi router. It actually only connect to it. So one will say option 2 and 3 are correct, but strictly speaking, option 2 is the correct answer. Great stuff. Now let's move on to the next quiz. Now this next question is related to the circuit breaker operation, particularly important for electrical technicians and power system engineers who works with circuit breakers all the time. Now the question is, what is the purpose of an arc chute in a circuit breaker, this device here. And the provided options are: number 1, to insulate the circuit breaker; number 2, to extinguish the arc formed when contacts separate. Okay. Number 3, to support the breaker mechanically. And number 4, to measure current and voltage. What is the correct answer? Now, before you can reveal your answer, let's see how the community voted. A whopping 89% went for this option 2. But is this the correct answer? Let's reveal. That is indeed the correct answer. But why is this the correct answer? Obviously, now this is related to the internal working principle of the circuit breaker. So now what happened inside the circuit breaker when the contact open under a load? Okay, because it want to interrupt a short circuit current, a high current, maybe overload. What happened? There's basically an arc that form between the two contacts, okay, that gets separated, and that is formed due to the ionized air inside that circuit breaker. So the clever design of the arc chute here is basically to split the arc, cool it, and lengthen the arc. Basically, by doing so, it forces it into smaller sections, and that basically makes the arc to quickly loses the energy that it has, and ultimately the result is it will extinguish safely, because if it doesn't happen, this whole thing can bomb, it can explode. Okay, so this is why we've got an arc chute. Okay, now there is a lot of different type of circuit breaker, and they deal differently in terms of extinguishing the arc. There is an oil breaker, air breaker, gas breaker, right? So please check my tutorial about component of an electrical substation, where we discuss the circuit breaker. Now, obviously, option 1, 3, and 4, they are not correct, right? And because the insulations is provided by different material, not the arc chute. And no, it's not to provide the mechanical support, because that is provided by the frame of the breaker. No, it's not to measure the voltage and current. That is done by the CT and voltage transformer at the point of connections. So that is it for this particular question. Now let's move on to the third question of the day. Great stuff. Now this particular question is very interesting. Okay, now this is related to synchronous generators, which are very important to us because they are widely used in power plants to produce electricity that we use every day, and they do so by rotating a magnetic field through a stationary stator windings. Okay, now the question here is, why is a DC excitation system required in a synchronous generator? That's the question. Okay, now before we can reveal the options here, guys, if you find this presentation useful, please make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to CMTEQ channel. Also share it to your social media network. That will be very much appreciated for the support. Thank you. Now the options are: 1, to increase efficiency; 2, to produce the rotating magnetic field; 3, to control the frequency; and 4, to create the necessary field in the rotor. Okay, so what is the correct option here? Why do we need this system in synchronous generator? Now, before you can reveal your answer, let's see how the community voted. There we go. A 50% went for option 4, that is to create a necessary magnetic field in the rotor. And option 2, 29% say to produce the rotating field, the rotating magnetic field. Okay, now almost a split here, but let's see what is the correct answer. Indeed, option 4 is the correct answer. This system is designed to create a necessary magnetic field in the rotor. Now, before we can just discuss on the merit of the correct answer, there was a convo on this particular question in the comment section, and one of my last comment to that convo was that option 2 is almost like a decoy. It's a bit of a decoy. It sounds great when you look at it based on this system, okay? But it's actually the mechanical rotation of the rotor, okay, which has a DC magnetic field that create a rotating magnetic field in the stator. Okay, so it's indirectly. So it's not directly the DC excitation system that create this rotating magnetic field. It's indirectly. But this system primary role is to assist to create a necessary field in the rotor, which then result in the production of the rotating magnetic field. So in a sense, the DC excitation system here is basically just designed to magnetize the rotor. This is why this option here is technically the correct answer. But now, let's just support it more by looking a bit in the working principle here. Synchronous generators, they basically need a magnetic field in the rotor to induce a voltage in the stator windings. So the DC excitation system supplies a direct current, DC, into the rotor windings. And this creates the magnetic field of option 4, which then will result in this option 2. So without the excitation, the generator cannot produce electricity, and we're not going to have power in our home. Okay? Now, option 1, it's incorrect because this system does not increase the efficiency. And option 2, it's also technically incorrect because the rotating magnetic field in the stator is related to the AC supply, not from the rotor excitation. Indirectly, the way I've explained it earlier. Now, you guys are welcome to drop more comment in the comment section related to this discussion here because it's quite an interesting discussion. Please drop your comment in the comment section. And option 3 obviously is incorrect because this system does not control the frequency. The frequency here is controlled by the rotor speed. Obviously, the DC excitation system helps drive the rotor, and maybe indirectly that can contribute to the frequency control, but not directly. Now, as a quick practical insight to this particular question is that think of this system as the heartbeat, okay? The heart of the synchronous generator, which basically plays a role of regulating the output voltage, reactive power, and the overall system stability by controlling the rotor field strength. So that is it, guys, for this question. Let's move on to question 4, which is related to steam turbines, also related to power production. And the question is, why are steam turbines preferred over gas turbines in nuclear plants, or nuclear power plants if you prefer? And the provided options are: 1. Steam turbines are cheaper to manufacture. 2. Steam turbines can operate at higher temperatures. Okay. 3. Steam turbines are better suited to convert heat from nuclear reactions. And 4. Steam turbines produce cleaner emissions. That's very tempting. Now, what is the correct answer? Let's reveal how the community voted. Okay, the majority went for option 3, which means steam turbines are better suited to convert heat from nuclear reactions. But is this the correct answer? Let's reveal. There we go. That is indeed the correct answer. But why is this the correct answer? Because we know that nuclear reactors, they produce heat. They produce heat mainly by fission, which is then used to generate the steam that would then drive the turbine with a steam turbine here. So these steam turbines, they basically perfectly suited to directly drive this turbine and generate electricity for us. Now, In other hand, gas turbines, they're not very efficient because they require high temperature gas, okay, which the nuclear reactors, they do not provide efficiently that high temperature gases. So that is why option 3 is the correct answer. And option 1 is obviously incorrect. Cost obviously is very important, but this is not the main reason for using this steam turbine. Okay, suitability and heat source is one of the problem. And option 2 is incorrect because it is gas turbine that operate at higher temperature, not a steam turbine. So it is the other way around. So incorrect. And option 4, generally speaking, emissions, they are very low, whether it's steam or gas. Okay, emissions are very low because nuclear power plants produce almost no emission because there is no burning of fossil fuels. Okay, so this particular option is almost irrelevant in this kind of setup. And as a practical insight, this option here is a reason why most nuclear power plants in the world out there, they operate based on these steam turbines, okay, making them basically the backbone of the nuclear power generation. Great stuff. Now let's move on to the last question of the day, which is related to communication systems, the UART communication system, basically the UART communication protocol. And the question is, why is a stop bit used in UART communications? Why is a stop bit, as you can see here, there is a start bit and there is a stop bit. Why is it used in UART communication system? The provided options are 1. To indicate an error in data transmission. 2. To signal the end of data frame and allow the receiver to reset. Okay. And option 3. To synchronize the transmitter and receiver clocks. Option 4. To add extra time between frames for processing. Okay. Now, what is the correct answer? Let's first look at how the community voted for this interesting electronics communications quiz. Okay, very clear, simply, option 2, overwhelmingly 82% say that is to signal the end of data frame and allow the receiver to reset. That is why the stop bit used. Okay, I cannot disagree with 82%, but let's see what is the correct answer. It is indeed option 2 that is the correct answer. So if you're dealing with a microcontroller embedded system and you are using the UART communication, you will know that every instructions that you send to communicate between your UART system TX RX, you have a start bit, your data parity bit, and then you have a stop bit. And this is the reason why, because in a UART communication, the stop bit basically marks the end of transmitted data frame, as you can see right there. This basically just give the receiver time to recognize that the byte have been received, the transaction is complete, and also prepare for the next one to come. Without this stop bit, there might actually be a confusion between the end and the beginning of new messages coming from the pipe. Okay, so the stop bit here is very important to ensure that the communication is flowing correctly, and this will ensure that there is no data errors and a signal integrity. Great stuff. So that is it, guys, for this week's edition of the CMTEQ quiz review. So as always, if you found it useful, please guys, just drop a thumbs up and share it to your social media network. Stay tuned on the lookout for next week CMTEQ quiz review, and don't forget to visit the community tab for every now and then quizzes are released, and make your contribution there. Thank you again, and until next time, cheers.